on Comcast channels 98 and 22. Channel 98 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 13, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report, with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.
Welcome to our February Conservation Commission. Hope everyone had a restful January, and we're back to business here. So our first order, we'll introduce, if we can introduce ourselves, starting down at my right here with Bill.
All right, Bill Campbell, alternate.
Tom Patterson, alternate.
Connor Madison.
Andrew Koff.
Nick Campion.
Dave Short.
Kyle Milk, alternate.
Gilman, select board.
the natural resource planner for the town, and it looks like there's a couple, at least Kristen Osterwood is online.
Oh, yeah. We have Kristen Osterwood online,
She's muted.
and that is it. Welcome. Can you speak, Kristen? Can we test this out?
Hello. So Kristen Osterwood here from home with unvaccinated kids.
All right, we can hear you, which is a minor miracle. Good job, everyone, for making this work. And we have Trevor Matera coming in late.
Except for the minutes.
Trevor.
I have 7:01, Trevor.
Welcome.
Hey, we just adjourned.
I don't see any other, do we have any public comment? I don't think we have any other than Toby here. So seeing none, we'll move to our first action item. We're going to discuss trail projects on store for this year. So how would we like to go about this? Toby, would you like to come up to the microphone?
Yeah, how else do you want me to do it? Yeah.
And I think, yeah, as long as you speak into the mic, that way
Is this all right?
people listening at home can hear you.
All right.
And maybe do you want to
Two people with no lives.
start this off and then we can go from there? Oh, we have Allison Eberhardt online as well. Welcome, Allison.
Hi, everyone.
Okay.
You're good?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. I guess I'll just give a quick introduction. My name's Toby Furden. I live on Stone Ridge Lane, which is essentially on the Red Trail in the Oaklandstown Forest. I've lived in Exeter for about 10 years now. And about 5 years ago, I started a Facebook page called Fort Rock Riders. So it was an idea that was spawned to try to get local riders together to talk about the trails, talk about riding, talk about maintenance issues, and to enjoy the trail network that we have at our disposal. I thought it was going to be maybe just about 100 local riders, just kind of talking about what's going on. But it is now up to about 1,300 members. And the interest in the reaction to Fort Rock, and when I say Fort Rock, I'm talking about the greater trail network. So the town of Exeter properties, Newfields properties, and then private lands that stretch from essentially the industrial circle all the way to 87 in Newfields. The reaction's been wonderful. Everyone was outdoors, obviously, during the pandemic, but even before that, the interest in trails, the interest in trail maintenance, the interest in building new trails that were on private land has been phenomenal. This fall was a little bit slow in terms of trail days, but typically I was trying to organize a trail day, groups of trail days in the spring and in the fall. We'd have maybe about 4 or 5 of them on the weekends in each of those seasons, and we'd easily get 20 to 25 people showing up for trail days, which I thought was outstanding. And there's still the hunger for people to do more. So this year, like I said, the fall was a little bit quiet, but there was still smaller work groups going out there and doing some Band-Aid fixes to some of the trails that were out there. Is that enough of a good?
Yeah, that's a great intro.
Yeah. So every year I kind of, I ride the network. I focus more on what we call the Newfield side, so north of the power lines off of Watson Road. I ride right there most often because it's my backyard. But I hear from other riders, I see certain things, and so every year in the winter I try to come up with a project list, because I know we have the interest in accomplishing those tasks. So you can see in the packet there's a list of all the items that we did last year. So again, this is Newfields, Exeter, and private land, that we worked on. And then this year just started to compile a list of projects for this upcoming season. So this list, again, private land, Newfields land, and Exeter land.
Okay. Yeah, I want to thank the group. I know we have a lot of trails. We have a lot of trail users, mountain bikers, hikers, runners, dog walkers, climbers, skiers, all sorts of people using the trails, and they've seen a ton of use, and you guys have been an essential part to keeping up with our trail needs, and so I want to thank you. I think this is a good opportunity to come in. We don't always, I know we get to collaborate some, but to have you in front of the whole commission is a good opportunity here to talk about, our responsibility from the town perspective. I think we'll focus on the land that the town of Exeter owns and maintains, and what we call the town forest, which is, Henderson, Swayze, and Oaklands. And obviously there's some boundaries in there that we may need to talk about. It comes up as it relates to where trails are. But I guess from our perspective too, we are the stewards of those trails, as that is one of our key tasks as the town's conservation commission, is to oversee the town forests and hence their trails. So there has been a lot of use, and there are a lot of trails out there, and so I know we want to go through trail maintenance, trail closures that have been talked about, and really any other activities. Trail signs, I know, is an ongoing issue.
Trailhead parking, possibly.
Yes, definitely.
Trailhead parking, signage at trailhead park. I mean, yeah, there's a lot here that we could talk about. I'm open to. I don't have a plan for how we go through this. I know you have your list. I don't know if we want to start going through this list. Kristen Murphy, I don't know if you want to chime in on how we go about having a productive conversation here.
I guess having a sense for what the priority projects are would be helpful. And then in the past, we have come up with sort of a sub-list that the commission wanted to go and visit for either new construction or changes in alignment. And so if we can identify what those are, then we can at least coordinate whatever follow-up might be needed.
Sure.
So ideally, at the end of this, we have a list of, these are good to go, you can move ahead with whatever the task is. These, maybe we need some more time to explore, and these we want to, say yes or no to. Or no. Yes, but anyway, you get the concept.
Yeah.
So maybe just stepping through. I do have, so our trail maps, as you all know, are not really current with the trail names. They don't necessarily jive. It is a challenge on all fronts because they sort of auto-name themselves, I think, by apps that people use like Trailforks and Strava. And so when I reviewed this list, I used OpenStreetMap.net, which seems to have a very current alignment of trails and a current list of names, and so I was able to do that. The nice thing about that is you can also use that to navigate in the field. So I've encouraged police and the fire rescue groups to use those OpenStreetMap in order to navigate through the system and try to get people who might need help to pull that up, because it's available if you have an internet connection on any phone just through your browser without having to download an app. But anyway, so maybe we just step through, and I can pull that map up if you think it's helpful, or Toby did provide a map in your packet as well.
Yeah, and that map's maintained by you.
That map is actually pulled off of Trailforks. So Trailforks is a mountain bike-based navigation app.
Okay.
There are some local admins for Trailforks.
Yep.
So we've kind of committed that if we're doing any reroutes or any new trail building, we try to get that updated within a couple weeks to help in navigation on the network. That then takes some time to populate across the other channels. It'll operate differently on iOS systems versus another operating system. And then I was just talking to Kristen about it. I don't know what the hierarchy is in terms of the technology, but eventually those trail names trickle down to other apps as well.
Right. The Stravas of the world and the OpenStreetMaps.
Correct, yeah.
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 And And it doesn't necessarily, like, it could just be a user mapping their ride, and they might call it whatever name they have that day for it, you know?
Yeah, correct, and that's-
So, you know, these aren't even necessarily names that any group of people have discussed, but we don't.
Correct, and I don't think anyone knew, 5 years ago that if you're naming a segment on a trail in Strava, that would become now the trail name that
Yeah.
is populated globally
Yeah.
on all the platforms. It just kind of happened that way. But then it becomes a reference, so most riders are naming, using the Strava conventions, so then that becomes what the trail name is locally. So just going through this list, if you want me just to step up and
Sure.
go through it.
This is the 2022 trail projects list?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
So again, this is Newfields land, private land, and Exeter land. I think it's safe to say any of the bridge structures that need to be repaired will get taken care of, if that's okay with everyone in this room. Some of those will be Band-Aid fixes. Some of them will need some new decking and some planking. I know on BLT, there's a couple of bridges that really need to be repaired because they're getting smaller. There's an area that's called Enchanted Forest. That bridge wants to sway quite a bit when you get on top of it, so that needs to be shored up. That's just south of the power lines and off of Watson Road. But I think the biggest issue on this list, aside from the Fort Rock Farm area, is probably the area just north of the tunnel on the Red Trail. So that's, I think, Drew, maybe you made a comment that was attached to an email about it being kind of a spaghetti mess of trails.
Yes, yeah.
Spaghetti mess of trails, and I think a lot of users would agree with that.
Yeah, I don't know if it would be helpful to bring up this area for people online or on the screen. Probably the people online will just have to follow along as best they can. This is sort of northwest of the underpass.
Just as you exit the tunnel, heading north.
So here's the tunnel.
Yeah.
And so we're talking about this section.
Yep.
Right, where BLT, which is the red trail, kind of commingles with Hillzilla, or what becomes Hillzilla eventually.
Yep.
And there's a number of sort of crossover paths that don't make sense.
Or are redundant.
Or redundant, and that's what I mean by don't make sense.
Yes.
Yeah, so we had talked about, it feels like there should only be one main route on the red, there is one main route on the red trail, and then there are all these side trails that aren't blazed.
Correct. So the red trail, the BLT south, as indicated here, is the red trail.
Right.
As it heads north into, toward the power lines. And then it connects with Hamburger Hill, which is off the map to our right. But yeah, there is quite a bit of connector trails or road trails that are in that area. There's also the old Center Trail that was closed down 3-4 years ago because it was too wet at the time. Those signs didn't last very long, and users were using it quickly after those signs came down. So there's talk about, can we open that up as an alternate access to get to the other side of the trail network.
And so that was the one where the intent was to close the lower trail, and you brought it up on the ridge line that Dave had talked about? Is that the one?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what is the ridge line? Is that site of lettuce?
Yeah, this is an older version too.
Oh.
But it would be BLT South that comes up and connects up to what it says BLT South again.
Well, then one of the connectors there, the left as you come out of the tunnel is called Jim Bob.
Yeah.
And that's where you get into what Drew's talking about, the redundant stuff that kind of parallels BLT until you get out to a point where Hillzilla / Demoralizer breaks off, and the the stuff that's paralleling it doesn't make a heck of a lot of sense. It would be good to shut that down and then just use BLT and then at one point break off to demoralizer. You know, instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or 7 different places.
Correct. It's tough to navigate if you don't know the trails,
Yeah.
even if you do know the trails.
Yeah, I've gotten confused in there, and I was like, just stay on the red. Just stay on the red.
Yes, yes. Yeah.
I think right now, when you come out of the tunnel heading north, you have 3 options, right? You can go down towards the Oakland's parking lot where there's a bunch of ridges that go down, there's a bunch of bridge work. Or you can go up to the left, and it's a pretty steep climb. And I think the allure for the center trail, which is the one that used to have a very long S bridge, it was wide and it was really fun, but it just rotted and fell apart. And so people started riding next to it, and then it started getting muddy, and then it was closed. And then it dried out, and then we said, well, maybe we can do this now, but it's muddy again. And one of the problems was people didn't want to go up the big hills it took to get through the tunnel over to the Newfield side because it was such a hard climb to get up these hills. So instead of riding from Exeter over to Newfields, where there was parking issues, they would just drive to Newfields and ride over there, further creating more parking issues. So the thought was if there was an easy path to get to the red loop, that center trail is it. It's pretty flat. And that would be the reason for opening it up.
Yeah, and I think that's true.
Because then people would take that, is that the 50-50? This would be the easier path, or is it the
that
red?
would take you to the red where you could go right and go 50-50, and you could go left and go BLT.
Right.
There's now, one of the reasons I think why there's so much spaghetti there is if you take the left option when you come out of the tunnel, then you come up to a T, and you'd have to either do almost a big U to get back on BLT, or you take a left, and through one of those connectors, it ends up hooking up with BLT or demoralizer.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
But I think that the reason for opening up that middle center section, which I don't think it's on that map.
It's not on any map.
That should be a priority.
Yeah, and it's also, if you're not a strong rider, it's pretty hard either way to go up or down. Either way, you have to go up eventually. And there have been some women who have said, I can't even ride up that hill, so I don't even go there.
Yeah, that ridge, and I've run more on these trails, and I can understand, I'm okay running it, but it's not easy, and I would imagine a biker is walking, unless you're quite experienced through that section.
There's not a lot of fun in it. You know, that's.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I don't think the idea is necessarily to make an easy trail, but would be nice to have an option that's a little bit mellower in that area, because you are committing to a technical climb. If you go left onto Hillzilla and Demoralizer, that's, as you know, is a commitment. And going back down toward 85 to the parking lot and coming back up Hamburger Hill is another commitment.
Well, and if you turn around and go back through the tunnel, it's a commitment coming out of it. So it's
correct.
It's almost
you have to pay your dues
nice
either
to
way.
have that break.
Yes.
Between two fairly difficult sections.
Yes.
On both sides of the tunnel.
Yes.
You know, you just get that 400 or 500 yards or whatever it is to kind of get your wind back, get going again, and so I think for any user, runners, hikers, bikers, reestablishing that would be great.
Yeah, I agree.
Reestablishing it with the bridging.
Yes.
So that it's not the muddy.
Well, I think trying to do it.
Well, it's established. I was just out there. People are using it.
Yeah.
So I don't know why. I mean, let's be honest about what's going on.
Yeah.
it's active right now.
No, but I mean, when I say reestablished, I mean reestablished so that it's, so it's got some durability to it.
Yeah, right. So if we want to keep it, then
Because it was, for a while there, you could use it, because we had, that 4 or 5 year drought period where the groundwater was so low that after rains, things would dry right out. But years ago, when we used to get normal rain, and we started to get it again, I can remember the mud being a foot thick in there. It was terrible. So, for something that's going to stand up to the use long term, I think we're going to have to do some combination of bridging and getting up onto the higher land. So,
Yeah.
I'd like to see that.
To the left of the existing bridge work that's there,
Yes.
as you head north.
Where we can. The terrain is tough there.
It is.
You and I have walked it.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of good lines through things. We don't want to be taking a bunch of trees down to create something. So
you don't think we can keep it within the existing opening? I don't know. It seems a little much to create yet another opening, and can we not do sort of planks through those wet areas?
We certainly can.
I think what's there is going to have to get removed though, because I don't know what it looks like now. It's probably pretty deteriorated because it was pretty bad last fall.
There's not much.
Yeah, I know.
Toby, if you opened up a new area, could you close off some of the other trails? Or would that not work either?
I think the location of that trail, with the exception of some of the wet areas, and if we had the opportunity to do some reroutes, is probably a good location. I know the train is a little difficult, but...
Let me back up.
Yeah.
We used to have a trail committee that was, about 5-7 years ago, Dave?
Right.
And it looks like it's evolved into the 4x5, which is great. I think you guys, and I would assume, because you're here, that you're at least, if not the sort of titular head of that committee.
Sure.
I know Dave's out there all the time, and I guess some of you others are too. If this group decides on doing something like that, is that enough, or do you have other people you'd have to consult?
Oh, no,
Because I was
it's your jurisdiction, so we're just willing to help.
Right. Well, and Dave is sort of the contact to that group, official, but now...
Well, we also now have Tom and Kyle that are also...
I live in the same neighborhood.
Yeah, and Kyle, I think it's great that we have more than one person. What I'm thinking is, if you guys decide on doing something like that, and that's a priority, then we should discuss on how we're going to do it and whether it costs any money for more. I know you've got some lumber out there, but should maybe the four of you or a group of the four should go out there and actually look and decide what kind of trail, where the trail should actually go.
Yeah, and I think that's the first step. I think looking at the people in this room should make the decision whether that's a go. We want to look at opening this up again, and then assessing what's it going to take to make it a viable and durable trail for the future.
And I think that you can close some of those extras, like the gully at the north end of Woodridge, that they used to ride right up that gully, and now it's blocked.
Yep.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, whoever wants to take a walk out there, probably not right away, but let's make, when weather permits, we all know how to get in contact with each other.
Sure.
Let's make plans to get out there and get a plan of attack together, materials list.
Yep.
And see what we're going to need to bring in for outside materials, see what we can get donated, see what we can't get donated, what it's going to cost, that sort of thing.
Correct.
So on this, just so I'm following along, on this list, we're talking about what's listed as center cut.
Correct.
Reopen,
Yes.
reroute, center trail. Okay.
Yes. And then once that's done, then we could address the areas that Drew, well, I think everybody's concerned about, off from the tunnel area, the spaghetti mess, and closing some of that down.
Right.
You know, once the other one's established, then we'll get in there and start closing down some of the that other mess that's in there.
Toby, would you mind using the mouse and showing us where that center cut
Use this map?
falls? Would that be easy?
Well, it's actually going to be down here where it's tunnel around, right?
There's the tunnel, right? Yeah.
So this is the connector coming off the tunnel.
Yeah.
And then it would come, I don't know where
It sort of parallels tunnel around, yeah, and connects right in there.
Right there,
Yep,
maybe?
I would say that it does that.
So it's almost a straight shot. It does have a little bit of curve, but
Yeah,
approximately.
I get, okay. Thank you.
Whereas that tunnel around kind of goes up a ridge. It's just to the right of it, yeah,
Correct.
down below. I could see that if that becomes the main, if it gets improved in a way that it's the main thoroughfare, it does further, it might help reduce that branching if we focus the use onto the red trail, away from the demoralizer. Because I can see people coming up to that T on the top of tunnel around and saying, which way do I go? I don't know. Some might go left, some might go right.
Sure, yeah. Dave, was that center trail used more often
Oh, it was
previously?
it was the route. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember it as the main route
Yeah.
before that.
But before that bridge went in, it got to the point where it was almost impassable.
Yeah.
So I've seen the fact that we do have to put a bridge in there, no question.
Yeah. And we do have some lumber left over from the Hamburger Hill project. We replaced some of the plank bridges on the right-hand side fork coming off of 85, so there is a stash of lumber there, but it's probably not enough. If we're looking at replacing those bridges and reopening this trail, it's definitely not not enough lumber to accomplish that task.
Yeah, because this could be, there's several sections that are quite wet, that
Yeah.
would need to have some level of
Yeah.
bridging or boardwalks.
And those existing supports that are out there now are on telephone poles, if I remember that right? Cut telephone poles?
All kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so they're, almost a foot off the ground as it is now, and if that's not enough, then we have to raise it up even higher than that.
Perhaps when you're out there and a group of you and deciding on the trail, you could get an estimate of how much lumber you need and bring it back and
Yep.
see what we need to do for
And
we got a
the
brand new budget we can use.
Yeah, and the issue is there's no dry, it's too tough a terrain. There's no, I mean, ideally, we would be avoiding these areas, right? For the trail, usability as well as the resource. So there's no way to kind of move.
There is, but that's gonna mean putting another trail next to it's a pretty wide trail already.
And the quality of it, I don't think is going to be great.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that we wouldn't be right back here talking about how wet the new trail is after we started using it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's better just make a clean shot of it through there. We've got the opening, we've got the footprint from the old bridge,
Yeah.
and just make a decision that that's the way we're going to go.
Yeah, I agree. It also has that rock outcropping, that ledge that kind of encroaches on the tail end of the trail, so that kind of limits where we can go
Right.
on that side.
Yep.
And then I think one other point maybe about, it definitely looks like there's a bunch of spaghetti there, but one of the reasons for it is the existing trails got used enough and eroded enough that they got really rocky. And I think people put the other trails in that were like a beeline, which is to say easier to ride, because you're going down this big rocky hill and it's a little scary, I guess. think that's something to consider. If you're gonna make the trail so difficult by getting rid of the ones that are easier that the average person isn't gonna be able to ride them. I don't know how you make that decision, but.
Well, you get other ones that need to be eliminated, like getting away from the stuff to the south of BLT, like that side of Lettuce Trail. When those guys put that in, they must have done it in the middle of summer because they built it way too low. And as soon as you start getting any precipitation at all, it's a bog, the sections of it.
Yeah.
It should just be closed off. It's not, I can see what they were trying to do because that section of BLT is beat to crap. But that is not the answer. That's not the way it was done.
And I think that's an easy sell because I don't think it gets used all that often.
No, nobody, well, there's a bunch of trees down across it.
Exactly.
Is that where the big Beaver Pond is?
Now you see the side of Lettuce there.
Up here at the.
I see it, okay, yep.
Yeah, I don't know if I've been on that
That
side of
went
Lettuce.
in like 3 years ago, I think, or.
One of the nice things about the conditions we have right now is you can see which trails get used, so you can almost literally count the number of people that use them just because of the tracks that you see.
Yeah.
I think that's a small subset, though, of the peak season
Yeah.
use.
Right.
So do we want, as far as, if you want to call it capital improvement projects go, you want to make this the priority, for, a major push? And then we can still, we still talk about there is a lot of other miscellaneous maintenance that needs to be done out there. Smaller bridging, like in the gas line. But that's all really minor. This could be this year's big project.
If you want my opinion, yes, I agree, and I think that the smaller things will just happen. Like I said, that we have the stashes of lumber and willing workers to go take care of some of those other issues. But if we're looking at reopening this, it's a bigger project.
Yeah. Well, kind of like the Up the Planks project was.
Correct.
That was the big project for that period of time.
Yep.
And it got done, and now it's far superior to what was there.
Correct. Yeah.
So, does everybody kind of agree with that?
Yeah, I think it's a priority for me. Allison has a question. Maybe she can chime in or comment.
Yeah, thanks. Toby, thanks for all that you do to facilitate stewardship of this property. It's appreciated. And I guess while we have you, I'm curious, and I know I'm asking you to generalize over what you said was like 1,300 followers on your page. So I know this isn't exactly a fair question, but I'm wondering how the users in your group respond to trail closures and the rationale for them. Like, are they more likely to respond to a trail closure because it's just a better ride and it gets you out of the swampy area? Or is the reason we're protecting this resource and this is a valuable wetland, and so we're gonna, try and still get you a good line, but we're gonna reroute you out of the wetland? Like, is that a compelling reason? Or can you get a sense of like the tone and the reaction to trail rerouting and closures?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, you'll always have some outliers, but I think for the most part, the members of the page want to do the right thing, and they want to have these trails open for biking and for recreation. So if it means maybe losing a little bit to gain and maintain access, I think they're usually okay with that. I think the problem sometimes exists is the communication of the closures, and I think having Fort Rock riders now can help disseminate that information. Because I think in the past, you close a trail and no one really knows about it. Maybe they hear about something somewhere, and before you know it, the sign's gone, and that's it. It opens back up. So I think reiterating the fact that certain areas are closed or being rerouted, I think for the most part works. Takes some time, but it does work. Tom brought up a point about a trail close to where I live. It was an area that was all getting eroded. We did a reroute last year, 2 years ago, I guess, to kind of change the profile of that trail to keep the sediment from eroding into the water. And it took a little while. People are used to, their habits, and they would continue to ride the old trail, but eventually they found that the new trail's there, and it kind of got worn in, and there's not much use of that old trail anymore. Takes a little time.
Awesome. Yeah, and that makes sense. And it seems like my thinking was that your page is probably playing an important role in that messaging. So, thank you. And I guess we should work with you to, figure out how best to do that.
Sure, yeah. You guys can respond to. I think riders are usually pretty responsive to what's going on for the most part.
Oh yeah, we've had, over the past few years, we've had several rogue trails either started or completed. And once they've been closed down, there was some discussion, but people generally respected the closures, and those trails have remained closed to this day.
Yep.
So, yeah, I think people are pretty good about that.
Sure.
Okay, so we have this.
There are two of your items there. Is that center cut and then the BLT entrance?
Yeah, the center cut and the BLT. A lot of these other ones, like I said, are not for Exeter to be concerned about. The only other one's repairing the bridges, which I said will probably get taken care of. Four Rock Farm has a trail called Accelerate on it that's notoriously wet. The running joke is you can ride it for like 1 week out of the year. The rest of the time it's just a clayey mess. So there's already talks about trying to fix some of that area.
It was really good this weekend.
Where is that one?
It's right behind Four Rock
This was
Farm.
the week actually where you could ride it with all the frozen snow.
It's up there.
That's also the trail that's affected by the Rose Farm. It goes across part of that property.
Yep.
And so there's probably gonna have to be a reroute anyways.
Oh, Fort Rock Farm.
Yeah, so
Oh, okay.
it's the Orchard Trail, and then this section here.
If I could maybe, I think maybe it seems like a trail committee would be a useful thing. But I know that they used to have it, but it seems like there would be a use for that again. One of the things that maybe we could come out of this meeting with is like, there's different kinds of repairs. There's the center cut, which is major, and it's got implications for a lot of different things. But then there's also like, if there's a bridge that's already there that needs to be fixed, like, there's a couple of those that just need planks replaced, or maybe there's some rock. Like, what process needs to be gone through so that people aren't just running around with saws and hammers and doing whatever they want out there, but stuff's getting fixed. Like existing stuff, like not adding anything new.
There's not a process right now, correct?
No, I mean, we can certainly talk about it. I don't see a major need for us to,
I don't think it has to.
we want to be notified about it, but I don't know that we need to individually approve a sort of in-kind
Sure.
replacements
Yeah.
of infrastructure that's already there. Obviously, we want safe bridges, safe crossings that aren't hazards to walkers and riders alike. But that's my sense. We tend to requested approvals for pre-approvals of any new trails or new bridges, that type of things, and anything new. But I'd say the in-kind maintenance, I don't know. I think we should just get noticed about it, maybe, like we're doing here. And I mean, I don't see the need to go through each one necessarily.
Well, a big one that's kind of an ongoing thing is trees going down across the trails. And various people just take it upon themselves, when word gets out that there's a tree down across a certain trail. I know Kyle's gotten some, I got some, I know other people have, you do a lot of cleanup. It just happens.
Yeah.
And but that's just normal maintenance stuff, and I think planks on a bridge or something like that fall under the same category. If there's a rotted plank, somebody like Mike runs out there and throws a new plank in.
And that's what I said before, like the hunger that people have to help out is amazing. And I think every time we have a windstorm, regardless of the season, within 48 hours, most of the trails are cleared regardless of the size of the tree right now.
Right.
And one little plank gets loose or starts to get a hole in it, it's usually replaced pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So it's been pretty remarkable.
So then, that sounds like a policy to me, right?
Yeah.
In-kind repairs are good to go without any sort of consultation. It'd be helpful to be able to communicate,
Yeah.
but no approval needed. Changes should come back to the commission. Yep.
Well, and we see, I don't know, Tom, you're on Fort Rock Riders too, right? Mm-hmm. So, and Kristen is. So there's four of us right there. And most of the time there is some chatter about any of these sort of things.
Yeah, I usually ask for people to take pictures before and after because I want it documented so that riders know what to expect when they're coming to an area that used to be in disrepair and now it's changed, or maybe the corner's slightly different to accommodate a bridge. So I always ask them to take pictures. If you want to call us the Trail Committee, I guess maybe we're getting our information off this Facebook group. But I'm also happy to collect that as needed and forward it to somebody.
Yeah, I would ask that. I'm not quite comfortable with us getting updates via a Facebook group. It just doesn't quite seem.
No, I'm saying if we're going to have a Trails Committee, as long as the Trails Committee is dialed into what's happening.
The Trails Committee would be dialed in.
Then we could be the conduit to bring any information of significance back.
Okay, the Trails Committee would be responsible partly for monitoring trail-related social media.
Yeah, be the liaison between the Conservation Commission and the user community.
Kristen included the bylaws, which is something we probably are supposed to look at regarding the tree committee. But looking back at the bylaws, we have a trail subcommittee in the bylaws, and we pretty much fit, you guys pretty much fit it because it says it's advisory. The membership should have at least 2 reps from the Conservation Commission. We've got 4, I guess, at least 4. And that it should meet at least twice a year to identify and prioritize trail projects, and that's essentially what you're doing. So I think it's just a matter of when you guys do something that somebody makes a report to the Conservation Commission. And when you need money, if you do, I know a lot of your guys bring a couple boards that need to be replaced, like you were discussing, Kyle, then you put them in. But on a big project, like when you redid the boardwalk from the Oakland's parking lot kind of thing up to the trail, up to the tunnel, then that would have to probably come to the commission first.
Right.
So I think we've sort of fit the trail the subcommittee definition that's right here in the bylaws.
Right.
And
Yeah, I agree. And we're not meeting as a subcommittee here, we're meeting as a full committee, but if Kyle or others want to organize additional meetings, we have limited time and energy tonight on trails, but this could spill over into another subcommittee meeting, and that's totally appropriate if needed. Obviously, the sort of self-organization of a social media group also, your Facebook group makes a lot of sense for this type of activity.
Sure.
Sort of crowdsourcing, things like that.
Yeah, so I'll throw in my my 2 cents as I've been listening through. The first thing, it feels like everything is working well here. Like I obviously totally appreciate all the work that you and your community have been doing on this trail system. I think you know it better than I certainly do. And I think the last thing I would want to do is sort of strangle a good thing with over formality.
Yes.
At the same time, I always have that little voice in the back of my head that has that little hesitation that we're sort of handing over responsibilities to what amounts to a Facebook group, but then again, we have multiple contacts with that group. So it feels okay at this moment to me to have it sort of this be the status quo where there's just open communication. I love seeing a work plan here, basically being able to go through, having a discussion, seeing where those trails lie and the work that needs to be done. And I agree with Kristen that it seems right now that any kind of in-kind repairs that need to be done, that someone just sort of does, seems like a low enough lift that it just gets done and it doesn't need to come back reporting to us, as long as anything that's larger, any kind of like medium-sized to larger-sized project, at least goes through one of the contacts to get back to us, and anything that needs to be built new, whether it be another trail is rerouted or closed, a bridge is built, any kind of example like that, comes back before us, and we just sort of go through the okay of it, get to discuss it like we are here, and talk any kind of financing or funding if needed.
Sure.
So all that to say, this seems good, and I'm comfortable with this. Thank you.
Yeah.
I just have to say one thing, though. We have to be careful about our presence on Facebook pages, and that I really appreciate all the work you folks are doing for us. But to identify, we clearly can identify this group as part of this group.
Right.
But you can say you're supporting this group, and if somebody on the trail committee or subcommittee responds on Facebook, then that you have to be careful because you're going to get some either pushback or the conversation's going to continue beyond us. And so we would need to have some kind of report back of that kind of activity. I'm just really hesitant to put the stamp of Exeter on it. And I'm conflicted because you guys are doing this work for Exeter. And we want to have notice of what's being done, just to keep up for ourselves of the conditions that we need to take advantage of or understand why it's happening. So I don't really have a suggestion, except for just be careful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think anyone responding is speaking for themselves and not for the town in that forum. And that's why this is good to have it, I think, once a year, either in front of us or the subcommittee, have these check-ins, and then the rest of the time can be more formal.
I guess that would be one question I raise. I don't think, it's not like the Facebook group would encapsulate the Trail Subcommittee. So what exactly would that, because that is actually a formal body. So, who would sit on that and what would it entail?
The Trail Subcommittee?
Yeah. Because I know, Bill had brought it up that the responsibilities are sort of being covered at the moment, but by sort of a scattershot of people at the moment over different platforms, sitting, here, sitting on Facebook, from the general public. But in the bylaws, the actual Trail Subcommittee is actually a formal thing. It's a formal body. And I think that's pretty safe to say, yes, we will keep that as a formal thing. That shouldn't just be sort of tossed out into the void and said, well, anyone can we'll just sort of create out of nothing,
Yeah.
Well, and to be fair, the way it has been working, Toby very much does coordinate and communicate constantly what the town's policies are on the trails. Dave comments, so there is a lot of that communication, and Dave comes back and reports to the Conservation Commission on a monthly basis, basically. I mean, it's rare for you not to have some trail item to discuss. So
Right.
I feel like it's kind of like almost the formal committee is getting a little, it's just not meeting as a separate body, as a separate meeting. And so that brings up the dicey part, I think, that Julie was trying to point out. So
If it's a subcommittee of this commission, then it becomes more formal, and you have to follow the 91A rules and post your meetings. It's a little tough. So having a little bridge between the different groups is fine if it's, one person contact who reports back to us. That's fine. As long as it's not a quorum of any identified group, I guess. So if we have a formal trail subcommittee.
Julie, I can't quite hear you down this.
Sorry. If we have a formal trail subcommittee of the commission,
Yeah,
then there's all the regulation that everybody wants to avoid.
I don't think we need another committee in town.
Yeah.
No.
And that's kind of how commission subcommittees go. It's subcommittees as needed. And so maybe I'm just saying, don't get mad if I say this, but maybe the life of the Trails Subcommittee as a formal meeting body has kind of run its path for now and is not needed. And as long as the communication happens on a regular basis, this other approach is meeting the need. Maybe that committee doesn't need to be so formal. I don't know.
Well, I think there's enough contact between various members of the Conservation Commission already that there isn't the need. There's Conservation Commission isn't right now a silo that has no idea of what's going on around it. And in a way, the Facebook page gives us, in addition to personally different members here already using the resource, the Facebook page gives us access to, in effect, surveillance
Visibility.
of everybody's activities. Because everybody likes to post about what they're doing. And so we've got two means of kind of keeping an eye on things. And we have, between Tom, Drew, myself, and Kyle, Bill hikes out there. It's, to establish another committee, to me, like when I rarely post on that page, but when I do, I don't post as Dave Short Conservation Commission. I just post as Dave Short. And I keep it short and sweet usually, and I think that's kind of where you're getting at too. I'm walking the line of.
Well, I think if we don't have, if you change the bylaws so we don't have a trail subcommittee anymore, but we have communication that comes back here, doesn't necessarily have to be a formal thing, just, report every other month or
we can just, we always have on the agenda usually some sort of town forest discussion or other properties discussion. And then different members at that time, if there's things they've observed, can bring it up.
Yeah.
And everybody's going to know about it. And that's the end of it.
Yeah, and as long as you continue to work with the group that has been, the large group that's been established as Dave Short, not Dave Short Commission member.
Right.
Yeah, then there's nothing wrong with that.
Right. Yeah, and I don't want to be that.
But we do need, we clearly do need more frequent updates. If that closed trail was reopened, we need to be talking about that,
Well, that's what tonight's about.
Right. So as long as maybe it's more frequent touches on truly what's going on out there, then maybe that need.
Yeah, I think maybe a little more frequency. I have some concerns about signs, and maybe we'll talk about that too. So there's certainly, I think, some miscommunications too, and I think we could be more transparent about when a trail gets added, and it might not be an official trail, but people have added trails, and reporting of that to us and decisions about how to handle it should be something that we're also made aware of, because I think there's been a steady creep in trail additions, and we certainly haven't approved all of them, and nor have they been sanctioned by the Fort Rock Riders or approved, but they just sort of happen, and how we deal with that process is something. So I think we can just leave the Trails Committee on, as a dormant subcommittee on our bylaws. There may be some need for it in the future. I don't see the point of striking it from our bylaws now to then in 5 years when we're all different positions that maybe there will be a need for it. So I think it makes sense to just let the Trails Subcommittee be a sort of dormant for the time being. It doesn't seem to be a ton of need for it based on this type of thing, but we can just continue to have good conversations like this.
Yeah, I think that, but I'd just do it slightly differently and say it is existing, and here are at least four members of that committee. Before, it was one person here who was on the Trails Committee, or at least called the meeting, and that was the fellow who was chair.
Jay.
Jay, and so I'm sure that at any meeting, one of the four, and I'm not sure whether some of you others are also riders. I haven't been out there in a while, but at least one of you would be here if we had to have a Trails Committee report or something.
Yeah.
So, and you guys communicate with each other so much. So I had a couple other questions. What are the Trail Forks maps?
Trail Forks is the app that is used for navigation. So during the pandemic and even up until last year, a lot of people get lost out there. So a couple of riders, including myself, have decided to start to carry maps, because a lot of times people will have the town map, and whether it's the newest edition or the older edition, it doesn't show the full network. So maybe having those maps at disposal at some of the kiosks would be helpful.
We do have our maps that we've got out at the kiosks too.
The problem is if you get turned around out there, then you're off the map, which is very difficult.
You're using the app. Yeah. And which brings me to something, Drew, you were mentioning, that you have signage, additional trail signs on hold for now, still frustrated.
Do we have time to talk about that?
Yeah. Do we want to talk about the map kiosk? I mean, how do we want to talk a little more?
I guess. So little tweaks like what we're about to talk about for the cut through, or whatever that, I forget what the name of it, center cut. Little tweaks like that, it seems like every time we produce a map, it's out of date. And so I don't have a good solution for that. If these if there are minor tweaks along the way. Some of these minor tweaks are pretty major. I mean, our trail maps look absolutely nothing like this. And I have said this from the start, that my preference, even though it's a ton of labor, and I know that there's a strong opposition against this, is to blaze every existing trail, so that when someone is out there, they know that they're on a trail that is an approved trail that the Conservation Commission is aware of. Because when you don't blaze a trail and people do a workaround and people just follow a path that they see someone else is using, then that becomes the new trail. And so it quickly devolves into outdated maps, and then that becomes a serious safety concern. They get regular calls at the fire department for rescues, and it's been a strong concern on their part. So I don't have a solution. I feel like, aside from blazing everything, and it scares me to think about what that means work-wise, what that means look-wise in this natural space. I don't know another solution. So I don't know how to update the maps.
The app?
I don't personally, but riders do.
They do.
Yeah.
Anybody can update it?
No, you have to have special permission. You have to be vetted to do so. And we have a couple of local riders who are really good at doing it. They'll map it correctly several times and then update it in the system.
That sounds the way to go rather than paper maps somehow. You know,
But
except
not
for,
everyone uses a cell phone. And
Yeah.
Trail Forks, I think, is it, or I don't know, is Strava paid or a free
Both of them
app?
are paid now. Yeah.
Paid apps, so,
Well, you can get a free Strava.
Strava's
You can get the map.
Yeah.
Free.
okay.
And Strava syncs with Trail Forks.
Yes.
So you can get Strava, a free version. It doesn't give you all your workout data and all that sort of thing. But it does give you all the basics as far as your location, trails, all that sort of stuff. I don't think there's many people out there without a cell phone. If anything, it would maybe be most helpful to determine which app can be downloaded for free and reflect what the trails are, and post at the kiosks, if you want a map of these trails, download this free app.
And I think that's what I think the update has a QR code. I can't remember actually.
Yeah, they do.
And that QR code takes you to the town website where the map is out of date, but it could just as easily take you to OpenStreetMap or something, you know. And personally, I like OpenStreetMap because, sad to say, but not everyone goes to the field prepared to hike the way they need to. And so that's something that someone who didn't take the prep work to download an app or whatever can still use.
You don't think it's more cumbersome to get into, though, in like, say, if somebody's in kind of an emergency situation, it's kind of more cumbersome to get into that than one button
And
for an
having
app?
someone download an app that they might not have?
No, well, hopefully
Yeah.
they've downloaded it prior to
Yeah.
their situation. You know, I don't think you can cover all eventualities.
No, I know. I just.
Yeah, there's no one solution for this. I mean, I like your additional trailblazing in the town forest. I think
I'm not sure.
I find it helpful. It's probably less helpful for mountain bikers, but it's more helpful for walkers and hikers. And I'm not sure exactly how to go about that. It certainly needs some thought because there's some issues with the existing blazes anyways. But it does lead to some sort of officialness to the trail, credibility to the trail, and we do seem to have more spider trail networks when they're not blazed, in areas where they're not blazed.
Maybe that's a future discussion.
Yeah, that needs thought. I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to, so you're talking about potentially photocopying and like little maps and somehow attaching them to the kiosks or to the existing trail signs that we have.
Correct.
I'm not opposed to those, and people can recycle them, like put them back when they're done.
And I don't know if that's the right idea. It was just an idea based on the fact that there's a lot of people getting lost out there.
Yeah.
I think that's a little bit about the frustration with the signs. The reason Toby says he's frustrated is because they had some really nice signs made up and people have been stealing them or taking them or hiding them or whatever. And one of the problems with having a paper map as opposed to an app is if you don't know where you are and you just have the paper map, then it's really hard to figure out how to get where you're trying to go, especially when you don't know what trail you're on and Toby told me a story about some woman who broke her knee last spring, and luckily she knew she was on cattle dog. And then, they actually came in from each side and they got to her, and had she not known what trail she was on, that wouldn't have worked. It would have been much harder to find.
Yeah, and our maps don't have the mountain biking trail names.
Right, they don't.
They don't.
Yeah.
But so, how important is it to have the trail signs on the trails, I guess, is one of the questions. And how much effort do we want to put into doing that if they're going to start disappearing?
Yeah, I guess that's news to me too, the disappearing sign. Yeah, let's talk about signs, I guess. I mean, we haven't made a decision about the maps, but there need to be
related to signs and the map, would it be possible to add a sign on entrances that are frequented by visitors and people who are less familiar to have a "don't get lost, use this app"? And I don't know if it's like a catch, whatever app we're using would at least still have it in their mind maybe of when they get lost, what was the name of that app? They'll at least, there's a potential, and then they can use their phone and GPS and figure out where they are.
Yeah, I think that would make a lot of sense. And I think someone sort of mentioned an idea like that of posting a few different options. We don't want to necessarily endorse only one thing, but I do like the OpenStreetMap or Gaia GPS, or there's a bunch of them.
Well, it seems, wouldn't it make sense to endorse the app that's the most accurate for each? Like, this area seems like it's maintained by the users in a specific app, and I understand not wanting to, wanting to be agnostic to different software, but wanting people to be safe seems more important.
Is Trail Forks free?
No. I think you can get a free version, but it only gives you a certain radius that you can view. So I think if you're immediately in an area, live in an area, you can see your surrounding area and the trails. But if you were to go somewhere else, I'm not sure if you're allowed to see.
I guess, trails. Yeah, but to answer your point, Kristen, I think there's several maps that are equally accurate enough. And maybe Trail Forks is more difficult to access than some of the other ones. But I haven't used that, so I don't know.
It's probably the best one, though.
But it's the best, so we could be included, but.
It's the one that's getting updated probably the most often.
Yes.
Yeah.
How quickly does it take to sync with OpenStreetMap?
Oh, that I don't know. I know it. Because to update Trail Forks itself, it takes several weeks to get across all the operating systems.
I was just looking at Ride with GPS, and it doesn't have any of the Newfield stuff. And
yeah, so that's maybe 2 years outdated.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe we do need to work on I like that informational sign about trail maps, online trail maps.
Now you said you didn't want to endorse like particular trails. Is that because I know when I first started using these trails, like the Red Loop was like my lifeline because you just follow the blazes. And I knew that eventually I was going to do a big loop. Like, is it maybe something to do to have a recommended for someone that's never been to Fort Rock before? Where do I go? Like, instead of them having to try and either have their phone in their hand the whole time, to have like, oh, this is a 4-mile loop that you can do that will show you some great trails, or
Yeah,
that's what our maps do.
You were saying you didn't want to recommend a trail app.
Trail app, yes.
Yeah.
I'm right.
But we still are keeping the red trail, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Please
don't get rid of the red trail.
But I guess I'm saying, like, should there be more than just the red trail? Like, should there be a white trail that will take you through a bunch of beaver dams and stuff like that, and stuff like that?
Well, not on the Newfield side, but on the Exeter side, there's a lot more blazing that has taken place.
Yeah, there's like the blue trail.
Blue, the green,
that does make it
yellow,
easier to get around.
And that blazing is pretty good,
Yeah.
you know.
There's always, so maybe a difference of opinion.
Well,
Yeah, there is only the one blaze in Oakland.
There are errors. There are errors out there.
Well, I don't even know which trails are which, you know, because I don't look at that. But, you know, occasionally when I do, you know, it stands out. But you know, you come back to kind of Kyle's point. Even if you know you're on the green trail or the blue trail, where on the green trail and where on the blue trail are you? And if you're actually making contact with emergency services, well, obviously you've got a cell phone. Or if whoever is calling in for you, you know, they've got a cell phone. You still need to know where you are. It doesn't matter if you know what the name of the trail is, what the color of the trail is. It helps narrow it down, but it still leaves a significant margin of error.
Yeah, if somebody said they're lost on the red trail, that's a large area to cover.
Yeah.
Trying to find them if they didn't have some type of phone device to tell them a little bit more of where they were.
Well, on your, the memo that's in here, you list relationships that are still needed, and the police department is one of them. And I don't know about the fire department, I imagine they can do this too, but I know that the police department can ping somebody's cell phone instantly, and if it's active.
See, that's the other thing too, is that once you've made that call in from that location, they can track where your location is.
It's just a matter of getting, depending on where you are, yeah.
Yeah, if they triangulate it, they've got you.
Yeah, but we shouldn't rely on that for rescuing a lot of lost sheep.
Well, I think all these things are going to be tools to use.
That's a fallback,
to
last
accomplish
resort option is.
Yeah, you want everyone to get themselves out. That is the plan. Is everyone should be able to get themselves out.
I'm not talking so much about people that are lost. I'm talking about people that get hurt. Yes. Yeah. People that are lost. Well, suck it up and try to figure it out.
Allison has her hand raised.
I'm going to bring us full circle and maybe voice an unpopular idea. I think we need a trail subcommittee. There are so many big issues that have come up in the last hour and 15 minutes. I mean, safety and to blaze or not to blaze and priorities and decision making. And I mean, all of these things are a lot, and I think really need more dedicated time than we can fit into an agenda every month. And I mean, we haven't even touched on the density, in terms of rerouting trails and cutting off trails. I'm just thinking back to that wildlife workshop and how Carlos would always talk to us, those wildlife buffers and how it impacts the buffer around a trail. The bigger the buffer, the more wildlife value. And looking closely at this latest version of the trail network, I'm thinking about wildlife value out there and how diminished it is. And so I think there's a lot of big questions to be answered around the trails. And I think it needs more time than we can give it either right now or even as a standing agenda item for just a piece of our meetings every month.
I think that's a good point, Allison. I mean, there's certainly a lot. Certainly a lot to talk about. But
Well, how often did the old former subcommittee meet?
I would say once or twice a year.
Yeah.
I was just going to say once in the existence that I was part of it.
Yeah.
The bylaws say twice a year.
Yeah.
The bylaws say
That
at
was-
least twice a year.
That was a goal.
Yeah,
So that's
well,
not, that's not really a heavy lift.
No.
I mean, report-wise, I don't know about actually, identification-wise and doing the work. But reporting back to the full commission is easy enough. I remember just a couple of reports in the last couple of years. And the noticing, you really just have to say, subcommittee's going out there, we'll be on the red trail at 2.
Yeah, I'm not interested, but I think we're letting it blow up too much by doing that. I think we can accomplish it more informally. I think we've identified some things that have to be worked on here. Let's see how it goes. If we decide 6 months from now that we do need the Trail Subcommittee, then discuss it again. But another layer of formality. To me, I agree with Trevor. It's I don't think we need it.
okay.
And
Well,
it's not that I disagree
could
with
see-
Allison, but it's
Yeah. I could see us, we have some good ideas here, whether it's blazes or coming up with better signage at our trailheads. Like I know the Trestles lot has a kiosk, but there's almost no useful information at the kiosk besides there's our big sign, but there's opportunities there for more information. I shouldn't say there's no useful information. There is some. That was the overstatement. So we could relook at our kiosks and trailheads, and that kind of thing could be talked with more depth at a trail committee meeting. So maybe it would make sense to follow up this conversation with the trail subcommittee meeting and just see how that goes. If we wanted to work out some of these details and then go from there. So we're not going to get through all this tonight. So at some point we should move on.
yes.
Does that make sense as a process?
Allison's looking for more than just trail maintenance, which we have great things with, but she's looking at, the effect of trails on wildlife and things like that.
Stewardship.
So, you want to move on, but maybe we should bring this back. And we've got the bones of a trail committee right here in the bylaws, if you want to just designate people to be on it, that's all. And rather than say, well, everybody's on it.
I don't know. I feel like the maintenance piece, we came to a good place with that. I don't think we need to over-formalize what's going on with the maintenance piece. I think everyone's in agreement that it's working now. This is great. The communication is open. As long as the trails are maintained, the resources are protected, and the communication remains open, I feel that is working as intended, and we don't need to stir the pot too much. I think we're bringing up now, and I think what Allison is hitting on too, are bigger discussions that we actually do need to talk about here, and maybe that's really what the meat of our trail agenda items start looking like, where we start trying to tackle these larger issues like safety concerns, communication and people on the trails and that kind of thing, because I feel like that is something that should be talked about at this table. So maybe we try to, and just because it's a capacity issue, maybe we try to start offloading some of that maintenance and that everyday stuff onto, the users of the trail, the folks that know it best, the folks that can get out there that day and get it done. And, at this table, we really start trying to tackle those issues like, what are we going to do about, blazing main trails and making sure that communication is open? signage do we have up that is providing that? What relationships with other departments or agencies at the town level do we need to start making sure the communication is open there to, make sure everyone's on the same page and that kind of thing. So I think that as much as I would love to offload that to a subcommittee, I think that's probably our job here.
Yeah, some of the bigger ideas, for sure. Yeah, we can keep, if we have another, as our agenda allows, keep talking about these things. The trail density is a tough one. I think we could get into it more, but there's certainly more wildlife values in other areas, and not that there's some wildlife values in the town forest, but yeah, Dave O'Hearn, who used to be on the commission, would say there's no deer in the town forest because they all run elsewhere. No one thinks of as a hunting place, and he was a hunter, but he would talk about there's really no.
The density is definitely different.
Yeah,
for sure.
But that's another thing that while we have Toby here, I'd rather focus on just some practical things, and I think
Toby just needs to join the commission.
We started talking about signs, and I heard something about signs being ripped off, and I guess I would say we've had some signs, we've had some cedar signs made, and some key locations that try to point people towards trailheads. I think those are useful. There may be need for more of those to the trailhead signs in a few key places that I've come across where you can get turned around. But now there's also a number of these green signs, and I'm aware that it's through the mountain bikers generally that have put those signs up, but I don't know that we've talked about them, and I know they are on our town forest property. I just saw one for the Western Frontier, which is a trail in Henderson Swayze on the blue side. Previously, I thought they were all just north in Newfields, or on some of it's still in Exeter, but on the Oakland side, north of the power lines. But now I've seen a few recently in other places. So I guess that was sort of a surprise to me because we have different types of signage out there now, and I don't remember having talked about those signs. So maybe that was something we could just touch on here.
Yeah, the conversation did happen about the signs, and so those originated on a trail deep into Newfields originally, and that landowner said it was great. We got a lot of great feedback from the riders, so we pushed across his property, adding those signs, and then sporadically put some north of the power lines, and then this fall we did start to creep south of 101.
I don't know whether these would be useful for us or not, but the Academy has gone to reflective signs for blazes that they screw into the tree. They're about 8 feet up so that they're not normally peeled off and stolen, but they're so that if you're dusk or dark and you have at least a headlight on, you can find your way out. Interesting thing. I've thought about it for us. I don't know whether that would help or not.
No, well, what they're talking about are actual signs.
I have them.
Right.
And so I guess the question is...
Yeah, what purpose are they serving?
Do you think it's a good idea or not?
Yeah.
We can beat it to death, but that's the bottom line.
Right.
Let's get to it.
Well, I guess I don't see the need. I would rather have those trailhead signs. Those are more useful for me, but as I guess I can see they might locate you on a map. Is that the intent?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we just had a conversation about people feeling lost in the network, and I think that the green signs are useful in understanding, where you are relative to the bigger loop, the red loop, because they all start, most of those smaller trails start and go back to that main artery or the red loop. And so, you know, whatever shadows run, right? I know when I start and when I get to the end of it, and I can gauge where I am in the system by those signs. But I find them useful.
For the most part, the trails that have a sign, they have one on the start and one on the exit. They're set off the main artery, so they're a little more discreet. In that incident that I told Kyle about with the woman who broke her kneecap, they would not have been able to, the rescuers would not have been able to locate her if there was not a sign. Because it's on the map, but they have to have a reference to know, you know, where they are on the network.
Okay,
So does
that's helpful.
anybody have any objections to the signs? I guess that's the question, right?
So these, like, I just also want to say that these have been placed on the network. I've had discussions with Kristen and with Dave before they get placed. And they've all been funded by riders.
I just have a couple questions.
Sure.
So what's the process with putting up the sign? Is it just like, I find a trail? I know we went through this already, but at what point from the map, like, is it on the map for like 6 months? And then we put a sign? How quick are we making a trail official? 'Cause I'm looking at it and it looks like,
Go ahead, sorry.
it just looks like we're pushing the, like, do we have a lot of land left as far as boundaries go? I'm curious what this is going to evolve into in like 5 years. Are we going to have?
There actually hasn't been very many new trails.
This is all out of curiosity, by the way.
And the new ones that I'm aware of are all up on the Newfield side, right?
All on
Okay.
private property.
Oh.
So the sign density on the private property is higher because those are newer trails and they intersect with each other a little bit more. The rest of the signs across the network are more navigational. Again, so you'll see them less often, but at points, I've placed almost all of them, so I feel they're at points where there's a question that maybe has to get asked when you're on that trail. So I'm trying to use the mapping and put it into clear locations with visibility for both regular trail users and bikers.
And I had one more.
Sure.
Do you know why they're getting stolen?
I don't.
Okay.
So the first couple were stolen. I think it was just kind of vandalism, for lack of a better word. This last round, I actually walked out there with a ladder and mounted them higher with security hardware, and they got removed.
So they needed a ladder to get to them.
Or a rope.
Well, this is a stronger material now. It has a metal backing to it, so you can't just yank them down. The first ones were just plastic. They could break pretty easily. This is a different material. But yeah, I don't.
Are the cedar ones gone, Dave, that we put in?
No, they're good. It's where there's been theft of these signs. It's been in a very localized area, and we've got some theories on why it's taking place. But I don't think we have an issue unless it starts to expand outside that. Because right now it's been pretty focused where it's happened. It's not happening all throughout the system in various spots.
Is it on Exeter town land? I mean, should we be concerned about it? Is there a reason why you're not saying where it is?
No, it's part of basically in the BLT vicinity, in the power line area, and my guess is that the problem is not going to extend beyond that. Call it a hunch. And so until there's further vandalism, and plus right now there's no firm evidence of anything anyways, so there's nothing to be done. I think we just wait and see on that, but I don't see the other stuff get messed with. You haven't seen it get messed with yet.
No.
Right?
How many signs have been,
Total?
Yeah.
I think we're up to 7 or 8.
and they're how much each?
45.
But that was,
So, do you think it's somebody who just is like a leave no trace kind of person. who
That might be
doesn't
part
appreciate-
of their philosophy. I kind of have a profile in my mind of what the person might be. But other than that, I really have no idea. But based upon what's taken place, where it's taken place, how it's taken place, I'd be really surprised to see it go and spread throughout the entire network. So.
Okay, so I guess, are there more signs that you guys want to put up? I guess I'm not sure. There's been signs here or there. Are there?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
I still have just shy of 10 to put up that didn't get placed last fall.
That didn't get placed.
Yep. And then if we want to talk about replacing the ones that are stolen, those as well.
Okay. And where are those? Those are 10 on the town of Exeter property, or?
Those start to drift onto private land on the Exeter side.
But there are some on town land, right?
Oh, currently, yes, there are, yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
There are some on town land currently, yeah.
So
Yes,
why don't
definitely, yes.
So why don't we why don't you mark up on a map prior to our next meeting where you'd like to put these new signs? I can bring it to the next meeting and
Yeah.
say, this is the thought, bang, yes or no.
Yeah, I think it would be helpful because we have kiosks randomly, or maps randomly spread throughout. We're gonna have these signs. Sometimes we have these like numbers that indicate where you are on our maps. It's just a little, my concern is we sort of have a hodgepodge now. It's not a uniform system. We have blazes some places, we have trail names in others now. So I don't want these names, which are a mountain biking thing, to be clear. I mean, other people can use them, but they're sort of more specific to a single user to make it harder on other trail users too. So I guess I think we need a little more. There hasn't been like what we're talking about here, of sort of a master plan for how some bigger thoughts about this, I guess maybe is needed. As I'm thinking about these signs, I'm okay with moving forward with them, but I guess I'll acknowledge it feels like a little bit of a hodgepodge.
In terms of design. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that, okay.
But for the moment, we're just going to go with, let's see where the suggestion.
Yeah, I mean, I'm open to, people, I see the value in them, but I also, I guess, just would like to say that I'm not,
You want to have.
to me, these signs just sort of popped up, and I know there's been some communication about them, but they have not been discussed, as far as my brain tells me, in front of the whole committee like this.
Well, we did, I think Dave we had talked about signage
Yes.
at a meeting. I don't know that we identified on a map where the signs would be or what they would look like.
Right.
I don't think, I don't know.
No,
I knew
that's
what
probably
they
true,
would
right, yeah.
look like,
Yeah.
where they would look, in terms of.
And the cedar signs are good, but maybe they're not, I'm not saying that's the be-all, end-all either.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. We do have a trail plan. The trail plan identifies what our signage should look like to keep it consistent, and we have veered from that. So, again, coming back to Allison's point, there is this sort of master plan effort.
Yeah, and what is this trail master plan? Right, we should
Yeah.
be using that, and we're not actively using our master plans.
The cedar signs are very nice. I love the way they look. Over time, though, they're fading and becoming less and less noticeable. So the utility of them is going to go down over time unless there's maintenance work performed on them. which opens up another issue. So,
Yeah, I mean,
Anyhow.
that's an age-old debate. Do you want a natural element in the forest, or do you want
Right.
something that lasts longer? I
right.
don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we settled on them partly because they do sort of blend in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a plan. They got put on the map.
But at the end of the day, the named trails are beneficial for safety, and that needs to be a top priority, you know. We can work the rest of the, what's our game plan out.
Okay.
That's my thought.
Yeah. I agree. Sounds good. Is there any other concluding remarks? Should we?
Can I bring one last item up?
Yep.
So, Toby, I saw on your list tracking hours. I would love to work with you on that because I feel like there's an opportunity to leverage grant dollars and others through that effort. So, and I also think it's really helpful for the Conservation Commission and the Exeter broader community to know just how much time is being spent maintaining these trails. So I think we all would value from that.
Yeah, this is something I've been wanting to do for a while, and I wish I had done it in years past. But yeah, I'd love to work with you on that.
I created just a Google form. It doesn't quite get used, but you know, a Google form the Rains Farm Stewardship Committee can fill out to track hours. It could be as simple as that, but maybe we could talk about something
Yeah, definitely.
offline. Does that make sense to you all?
Yeah, I think that's great. So we will continue to work on this stuff. If we have time, maybe at a future meeting in the next few months, we could come back to some of this stuff. But it seems like we have some trail maintenance, clear as mud. No, that's actually pretty clear. But some of the other things, trailblazes and signs, maybe we'll look more at.
Sure.
Yep.
All right. Excellent. This is great. Thank you for
You're welcome.
taking the time out of your night
Thank you
and
for
for
the
all
time.
your work on these trails.
Thank you for all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else?
I don't have anything.
Yeah. Good.
Thank you.
Trails were really good this weekend. They were really it's amazing.
It was phenomenal. Yep.
There was just that snow we had was just so unique in that, or the ice that it filled in everything.
The every type of frozen precipitation you could possibly have in 24 hours. Yeah.
It made for really good trail conditions. It was grippy, not icy, and just filled in all the low spots.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
There's no roots of rock. It wasn't Fort Rock anymore.
Right. It's really cool.
All right. Thank you, guys.
But now it's a muddy mess.
See you, Toby.
Soon to be a muddy mess out there.
Oh, God. It's got to be awful.
So the bylaws,
So the tree committee and I have been meeting regularly, and they felt, and I agree, that much like the Rains Farm Stewardship Committee, they are very active, and so it made sense to sort of formalize and legitimize it as not just an ad hoc subcommittee, but it is an official committee. And so I crafted some language for the bylaws. I think at some point we're supposed to update the bylaws on an annual basis, so maybe we take a broader look at another time, but I had proposed some edits, at least to include the trail committee for your review.
and you reviewed this with the trails?
Yep.
With the tree committee, sorry.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't have any, I think this is great. And it makes a lot of sense to add that in there. That was sort of an oversight.
I'd make a motion that we adopt the wording that's in the bylaws for the tree committee.
Okay, but can we, Allison has a comment. maybe we can
okay.
take that before we
Yep.
take any votes. But we have a motion on the table.
Yeah, maybe this, just a quick point for discussion. Kristen, from your conversations with the tree committee, what do you think the reaction would be to something to the effect of, a focus on native or non-invasive? I guess not everything they work with will probably be native, but having kind of an ecological component, an ecosystem function layer through which the tree committee works, so that we're not actively planting invasive species in town?
Yeah, so the tree committee worked to adopt a town ordinance that the select board did adopt. I believe we had several readings here.
Yeah.
Part of that included a species list with
That's right, okay.
with a priority on natives. And so in order to plant a non-native tree, there needs to be justification as to why. And I think we did step it back a little bit to regionally native for some of the species, because some trees, it kind of made sense. It's harder to get certain species. And so we did broaden it. And I can't remember what species of trees. Dave, maybe you can help me, or maybe not. But I'm happy to bring that back. That tree ordinance is on the town's website. I think it's Town Ordinance 23 or 24 or something like that. It has a species list, it has planting guidelines, and then sort of a process for reviewing tree plantings on town property.
Yeah, Kristen, thank you for, I remember that now that you say it. And I think that satiates my need to have that included in the bylaws, because subsection 2 says in carrying out the provisions of the tree ordinance. So if that's captured in there, then I'm all good.
Okay.
Yeah, this is mostly administrative, which I think makes sense to be administrative here. And anything else?
I would second Bill's motion to adopt these bylaws changes.
Okay, we have a second. Nick, what's up?
I was just going to ask, do we already have a member of the commission serving on the tree committee?
Dave.
We have Dave.
Gotcha.
Dave doesn't need to be also on another.
No.
He's a busy guy.
Yeah, he's running a town almost.
And Drew, remote people don't vote, correct?
Okay, good point.
Roll call.
Votes should be by roll call.
So we should do a roll call vote to include, you can certainly abstain, anyone can abstain. But we can include you, Allison, because we're doing the virtual option. I think we actually have to include you.
Yeah, so Kristen and Allison are voting members, right?
Right.
Are you sticking with the voting, or?
Yeah, I'm not a voting member.
Right.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about all the details here again. And we have a clerk that's supposed to do the roll call.
Who is the clerk?
And who is the clerk?
Oh my goodness.
Where's Sally is still the clerk in my mind, and we really she anchored me through COVID meetings.
I think I could do it. Or you, I don't.
We don't have a.
We may not have a clerk.
I think Drew.
I was the clerk.
Oh, okay, Kristen's the clerk. Perfect.
But I don't know everyone who's there.
Oh, yes,
I
that's
don't know
right.
who's in the room.
Okay, well, Kristen Murphy will do it because it's too complicated for a virtual person to do it.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second,
Yes.
so we're ready for roll call. Allison?
Yay.
Kristen?
Yes.
Connor?
Yes.
Drew?
Yes.
Trevor?
Yes.
Nick?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Who did I miss? So we need one alternate, right? No.
Seven.
Oh, yeah.
You got him.
Oh, that's seven.
4.
Apologies.
Seven, yeah.
We have 7 voting members here? Wow, go us.
You're new at that clerk job.
This is why Kristen should. I can't count.
Okay, all right, so that passed. Excellent. We did that, okay. Committee reports. Do we have any committee reports of note? Property management? I don't have any, do you? Oh, actually, they're drilling at the Morse set is gonna start actually potentially later next week or the week after. I think they're drilling at the Phillips Exeter property.
Softest possible.
Hopefully it'll firm back up next week, be a little colder. They're starting, I think, at Phillips Exeter and then coming to Morset. So we will certainly can reach out to them when they're mobilizing that we should, if it's really muddy, that's a bad idea. We could at least give them a heads up about that. Hopefully it firms back up.
They should know to wait.
Yeah.
That was just under my breath. I can also let them know.
Yeah, that's true. Anything else that's come up?
Under property? I don't think so.
Trails we just covered. Are there any other, unless there's other non-town forest trails?
Yeah, I do have one thing. So we have been running into some issues with the Garrison Lane entrance to the Little River Conservation Area. There is ATV and snowmobile use happening out there, and so working with Public Works, they had moved some boulders into the entrance of the road to try to dissuade it. Whoever is involved also owns a tractor and was able to move the boulders out of the way. And so then Jay Perkins from Public Works dropped a jersey barrier out there, but they're still gaining access. So I think I'm gonna have to speak directly to who's doing it. It's pretty easy to follow the path back to where they come from.
The person who owns the tractor, you mean?
Yeah, the tractor and yeah, so just be aware that is ongoing. And then also, as you know, Public Works put in that small parking area. Currently, there's a no parking sign on that, and that's because in the winter months, plows need to be able to use that to back in and drive out face forward out to Brentwood Road. Otherwise, they have to back all the way out. So I had a couple of phone calls about that as well, just so the public is aware. Maybe we could work on better signage, like no parking during snow events, or I don't know.
Yeah, like something. A winter parking closure kind of thing. People still park along at the end of, we used to allow parking just sort of straight on along the end of the road.
Yeah.
But probably not either.
And the plow would need to get there as well, so I don't think that would solve it. I mean, I think the issue is they just need that clear during times that they're plowing.
Right.
And so a more effective way to sign that is something we probably should look into. And so the other thing I would like to do is consider a no motor vehicle sign out there, because police can't enforce the no motor vehicles without signage, and there isn't signage there. So I don't know if you guys are okay with that. You know, I don't know. I hate having a ton of signs out there, but this is really, could be an ongoing, intense use that could occur on a regular basis out there, just given the situation.
What do you want? Do you want signage?
I think we need signage, but in my mind, it's speak to the issue directly, and then if that doesn't solve it, sign it, and then it'll be an enforcement issue.
Well, do you want a motion now to allow the signage if dialogue doesn't work?
Sure.
I'll make that a motion.
I'll second that.
Okay. Oh, roll call. Allison?
Yay.
Kristen?
Yes.
Connor?
Yes.
Drew?
Yes.
Trevor?
Yes.
Nick?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Wow, efficient. Okay, so that's for a sign, for a potential sign out there. If we need to expend money, we approve a sign out there. Okay. Thanks for that update. That's helpful. Any other?
No.
And I guess if we can talk more about posting if it gets really muddy at the end of this week. We might need to, I don't know if we talk about getting the word out about limiting trail use. In relation to that, we have the full moon snowshoe on Saturday at 6:30. I was still excited about leading that. It's supposed to be pretty warm though. I'm feeling all the snow is going to go away. I don't know if there are any thoughts. I was getting slight second thoughts about it. If there's really no snow on the ground by Saturday, and if it's muddy, is that an issue with the walking across the country club?
Do you stay on the paths until you get to Irvine, or?
We could do whatever. Traditionally, we've like looped around and done everything, but we could do it and just stay more on the path. If it's a nice warm night, it might be nice.
Yeah, could be.
Supposed to be 56 on Saturday. So.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So it's gonna be. It's not a snowshoe. I can tell you that.
That's out.
And I didn't have any plans to do hot chocolate, and maybe we don't need it if it's 56. And so we can just keep it very low key. Yeah, let's do it. I don't like canceling events, so.
Who all is helping? Okay.
Now, do we need to get the word out? I know it's been posted in the town. I don't know if there are other ways to rally people.
It was shared, it is up on Facebook. It's on the town website and under latest news.
Is it in the community page?
Oh, we could share it
That's
to
a good question.
the
I don't know.
Facebook Exeter community page.
Yeah.
That would probably get people.
Yeah, a lot of people read that.
Drew, are you going to have a bonfire? Without the snow, it's a little tricky out there.
I think we're just going to do a hike.
Okay.
I want to keep it really simple. I did email David O'Hearn because he's the one who's done the bonfire in the past, and I didn't get anything back from him. I could reach out to him again. It's a little late in the game, but let's not do. Maybe we just do a walk. That's my sense, but
Without the snow, the bonfire is a little tricky.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do like iced tea or something at 56.
Iced tea. There we go. Well, I can do a little recon out there and just later in this week and just make sure I can prep it, make sure I have
Drew,
a good plan.
I can help out on Saturday.
That'd be great.
Yeah. And I have a 9-year-old community member who has been listening and feels very strongly that there should be hot chocolate.
Okay, all right. Excellent. My 9-year-old community member might also agree with her.
I love it.
Yeah, so if you need anything, you can ping Allison or I.
All right, so we'll check in about it between Trevor and Allison and I. And then can you post about it to the community forum?
Yep.
Okay. Excellent. And the scavenger hunt item, unless there's anything else on.
Yeah, so the tree committee is wanting to, or is planning to hold a scavenger hunt where they would reach out to the different schools in town and encourage them to identify and possibly recommend potential big trees, so champion trees or big trees locally. In Exeter, there's really only 7 that are included on UNH's big tree list, many of which are on private land. And so Greg Bisson, who also attends the tree committee meetings, offered a $25 gift certificate. So we will take all of the submissions for potential big trees and then have a drawing for a $25 gift certificate to a Parks and Rec program. So we're hoping, there's still some kinks that we need to work out. The tree committee thought maybe it would be best for a 2-tiered project where we show them where existing big trees are, they go and locate them, and they can get a sticker or a Tree City USA, something or other. And then the grand prize would be the $25 gift certificate, but there's a little bit, it's kind of challenging because there's so few public trees, so it doesn't make for much of a challenge. It's basically go down to Swayze Parkway and take a picture of the river birch. So I think we need to rethink that a little. But one of the tree committee members is meeting with, I think, the Main Street School teachers to talk about it tomorrow. So it's a great way to sort of drum up additional big trees in our community. It's always fun. And they are talking about possibly having either a virtual or a spring program on big trees locally as well.
All right. Excellent. All right, should we approve the minutes?
I have 2 little things on the minutes. Mr. Chairman, in the action items under the 3rd paragraph down, Mr. Tinham, that one, about the 5th line, it says, a sample would be collected. If not favorable, they would backfill and move in. I don't think that, I think they move out. Aren't they leaving? I don't think. And
probably move on.
Yeah.
Or move on. They're not going to stay there. And the other was under trails. Wait a minute, lost it. Yeah, under page 3, under trails, the 2nd paragraph. No, wait a minute. I had it on another piece of paper. No, it's this first paragraph there. And the last part, Mr. Short noted the idea had been put out there to move it. I'm not sure what we're moving, but the bypass has never been really a good trail. So abandoned trail, is there a bridge that you're moving?
Well, this is the center cut trail that we've been talking about.
I was confused, but that's not unusual. The other thing I wondered, Kristen, is it possible for a fellow that does the minutes, I forget his name now.
Dan.
Dan. Can he put line numbers in?
Sure.
They've done that now with the minutes and a couple other committees I'm on, and it's very helpful.
That would make it faster to review these. It's a good idea.
Otherwise, they're good. In fact, they're very good. If no one else has anything, I'll move that we approve the minutes as amended.
Second.
All right.
Allison? We moved and seconded the minutes as amended.
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't find my unmute. Yes, yay.
Kristen?
Yes.
Connor?
Yes.
Drew?
Yes.
Trevor?
Yes.
Nick?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes. I'd also make the comment that under trails are some things that we didn't talk about tonight that are part of the trails that should be just incorporated into who these, the list that we proposed. So, at least I didn't see them tonight.
Okay. Good points. Thanks, Bill. Do we have correspondence?
No. I did not bring it, but we did receive a copy of the wetland permit for 32 Charter Street. So if you're interested, I can forward that on to you. They received their wetland permit.
For what was that, Chris?
32 Charter Street, so that was the one where they're doing prime wetland restoration and then a construction of multifamily
Okay.
condo unit.
Oh, it's Catapanos, right? Catapanos project?
Yes.
Okay.
So they've received it, so, because they were talking about going out in the winter to, no, there wasn't, it was, never mind.
I'll send the wetland permit around if you want.
Sure. We haven't talked about rains. I don't know if correspondence is the right place to do it, if we need to.
This past Saturday, we had the town deliberative session, and Kristen did a great job speaking to Article 15, which I think you're all aware is to do the renovations along with the LCHIP grant down at Rains Barn. And I think it was very well received. Only one or two people got up and spoke favorably on it. So it's moving forward as proposed. And that's kind of the only big update at Rains that we have.
Yes.
Do we have more open barns in the works?
Conceptually.
Conceptually.
The weather, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of one of those weather things.
Did you do it the other week? No. Okay.
We never ended up doing it. That was the weekend of the major storm.
Storm, yeah.
We got on that Saturday that gave us.
Yeah, that was challenging.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything we should be doing? I guess we can promote the article. There's nothing really else to do.
Yeah, so in terms of, I guess I should have provided a better update about this. Barbara Rimkunis of the Exeter Historic Society just released an Exeter History Minute about Rains Barn, so that's available now.
That's good.
Did you had a chance to listen to it?
Yeah, I didn't listen to it. I should.
We have videos on the town's website explaining the warrant article if people are looking for additional information about it. It also speaks a little bit about the history of the property and the repair needs in more detail than we did at town meeting. And there is a fact sheet also there with pictures of the interior of the barn and some of the areas that we're working to improve. So those are all available to the public if they're considering what their opinion should be in terms of that warrant article.
Tell your friends.
Yeah. And when is the actual
March 8th.
March 8th, which is the same, is that an issue? We're meeting on March 8th.
Not if you vote before.
I know we've
Yeah, in
moved
some
it
years
some
we
years.
were-
This always seems to happen. It's always the second Tuesday.
In some years, we've had a hard time getting quorum because so many commission members worked town meeting. It's up to you guys if you think you'll have quorum or not.
Are we okay having it on the town meeting day next
I
month?
won't be here, but that's,
Are
I
you?
don't need to count anymore.
I think we'll have enough people.
Okay.
Yeah, I've never volunteered at them, but I support people doing that, obviously.
Okay.
So Bill, you can't make it, but
But yeah, but I don't.
okay. Sounds like everyone else is around, so we'll just stick with what we have. Okay. Well, that's great. The other thing that's coming up sooner than later is the Alewife Festival. And so I want to keep that on people's radars. And do you want to, what's the date on it? End of May?
Yeah, May 14th. It's a Saturday, the second Saturday, I believe, in May. And I do want to call another Alewife Committee meeting, and I'm hoping at this meeting, each group can talk a little bit about what their plans for their table will be. So if you have some specific, there's so many different areas I think the commission could bring forward. So I'm not sure what the goal is for this group. I know.
Yeah, we haven't talked about it too much
We
because we
really
were so
haven't.
busy with meetings, and
Yeah.
it's sort of gotten pushed off.
So maybe at the March meeting, we'll kind of solidify a plan. Does that
Yeah.
sound good? But if anyone has thoughts now, we could talk about it. Or you could email me some thoughts. I mean, I would love to have information on maybe like the sea rise maps, or, there could be some really good outreach opportunities at this situation. So, I don't know.
Now, look in the town master plan, because there are action items that the commission's supposed to take, and one of them is education.
Right.
And also.
Education about sea level rise
Yeah.
and flooding is one of them for sure.
Yeah.
I know I was trying to see if the Pollinator Pathways New Hampshire or the Tree Committee want to have some information at a table, so maybe it could be a table with a variety of different topics that the commission is interested in, trail information. The list can be lengthy, so it would help to kind of hone in a concept. So that we can be sure that we're prepared.
So we have the table, but we also sort of need general help just organizing and doing things. So if you are interested in helping on the day of or help in the planning, be sure to let us know. I know I'm going to be there. I hope some other folks can either start spreading the word about it. I guess we'll have more advertising coming out in the not so distant future.
And maybe for the next meeting, I'll bring kind of a rough day itinerary, so folks can see who has agreed to be there, what committees will be represented, what the time frame is, and kind of the rough plan for the event.
And Kristen, one thing I'll mention, if we decide our focus is sea level rise and storm surge, I can't think of a better place to illustrate that, or a place that's frankly vulnerable and needs to be thought about in terms of what we want the future of Swayze Parkway to look like in the face of rising seas. And so I think there's a lot of potential to actually work with that place, like that actual location, and, even, visualizing what the different sea level rise scenarios look like what does a 6-foot sea level rise look like, and, doing it on the landscape, something like that. So, I mean, I can talk with you offline, or at the next meeting, but I think there's a lot of great potential right there to talk about sea level rise.
So the event, though, is Founders Park.
I was thinking it was on Swayze. Okay,
I know.
never mind.
We opted
Take away what I just said.
Well, no, maybe you
another
could
option,
walk
though,
down. Maybe we
just
could
be
have a thing.
tour.
Oh, Founders Park is the library, park, right?
Yeah,
Not
we're gonna.
that still works. That could work. Yeah.
Because we're going to use the library too, so that there's going to be film showing in the library.
Okay, got it. All right, I'll give more thought to it. Thanks.
No, I think that's a good idea. I think that would be a cool demo.
Yeah, I'm not sure where the siphon project will be at that stage, but.
Oh, that's true.
Depends on if we get money.
Oh, okay. So.
It could be a cool hole in the ground.
Could be. There are some great pictures that people have taken. I don't know how I would find them, but of Swayze Parkway flooded. Like when the sea rack is way up on the green space. That would be a good illustration if I can find them.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, it's only going to get worse.
Yeah.
And I think there is a king tide roughly around that time frame too. So maybe we'll see live.
Wow, that would be interesting. Okay, so we'll regroup on the Alewife. I just didn't want to. I wanted to keep that in people's minds. And then the last thing here we have, is there legislation you want to discuss from New Hampshire ACC?
I didn't want to discuss in too much detail, but New Hampshire Association of Conservation Commissions is following several pieces of legislation, and the e-news details the ones that they're taking action and submitting either letters of support or letters of concern about. I think there are 3 or 4 proposed bills that would address the ability to have hybrid meetings or virtual meetings. So it might be worth taking a look at those and seeing if the commission is and there's some other ones, related to prime wetland fingers and some other things. So if it might be worth taking a look at the list and determining whether Exeter Conservation Commission wants to take any sort of position on these and send a letter as a board, or if you want to take individual action or no action. But it's definitely worth looking at the list. And Barbara does a really good job at kind of the e-news gets regular updates. So there should be another one coming out, I think, next week. So if you don't subscribe to that, you can through their website. But it's really handy to kind of hear some of the concepts that are being kicked around.
And if you want to register your opposition or support of a bill, you should do it sooner rather than later, because the House is meeting the 16th and the 17th. And so some of these bills have been through committee and are going to be, I can't guarantee they'll be on the floor this next week, but they might be. I can tell you on Thursday when I get the calendar.
I didn't quite get that, but Julie, you're aware of the one,
yes,
the HB 307, which says that a town cannot regulate guns anywhere.
Anywhere in any municipal
For
property.
sale. Now, what they had in there originally was the word use, which meant that people could go out in Henderson Swayze and shoot target practice, which would make it a little scary all year long. However, the word use, I think, has been taken out.
It has been removed. However, it was replaced by prohibiting towns from any regulation of firearms.
Does mean people could, anytime they wanted to, walk out to Swayze or any place that's like that.
But
I think
I'll tell you, at the very end of it, I think the Senate added that a town meeting, the legislative body of a town, can change that. So voters in town can.
No, that's new. That's good. All right.
Yeah.
That's one to watch. Then.
So that's one that it's a House bill, went to the Senate. The Senate amended it, so now it's coming back to the House floor. And I'm not sure. I can't tell you until Thursday whether it's going to be next week or not.
So Julie, what is like the pecking order in terms of regulation? If we received a property that the donor or the grantor prohibited hunting, that's in the public trust, regulated basically through charitable trust. So I would assume that would still hold.
Yeah, that's like a legal deed, I would imagine.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's not a local regulation.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a local regulation, it would be a deed restriction.
Yeah.
Probably.
So some of our spaces would be covered.
Right, but a lot of our spaces, the original deed for one parcel might have prohibited hunting, and just because it's easier for management, we followed suit for the abutting properties. So those might not have deed prohibitions, but we have said, no hunting.
Yeah, I think that would still hold, so it's got a deed restriction.
Julie, the bill said the legislative body or the governing body could not make rules that would prohibit, which meant that, and if they did, a town person, it's sort of like that abortion bill in Texas, a town person could then sue the town, and if they won, they'd get $10,000, and
plus
the head of the commission might get removed, and also
the governor can take away, take away or remove whatever.
That's
made the
about
motion.
making rules, and it may not. Your point may be well taken. The law.
But like I said, there are many parcels that the deed is silent on that, but yet we apply a no hunting policy to.
Yeah, that will go away if this bill passes.
Yeah, I'm not so worried about hunting as I am just going out on a spring day and having somebody taking target practice out there.
And there are regulations already at the state level for how close you can be to like a residential area or somebody's house, but that's at the state level, and now the state's coming in and telling us little guys apparently what we can do. So it's very unfortunate. I'm going to show you the website for the house webpage, so you can see where you can log in electronically and post your position on the bill. And I'll have it here, so you can, as you leave, you can look at it. Okay.
Okay.
So maybe given that, it makes more sense to take individual action, because we won't have a meeting before that.
Well, someone can make a motion for either you to represent the group or Drew to represent the group that would oppose this bill. You don't even really have to say much, except for that, in our case, we're concerned about our natural resources and the diminution of use because of this.
Drew, are you okay with being nominated for that position?
Well, not either, that on behalf of the Conservation Commission, I'll motion that either Kristen or I will reach out regarding this.
Second.
In opposition to the bill.
Yes.
Allison?
Yes.
Kristen?
Yes.
Connor?
Yes.
Drew?
Yes.
Trevor?
Yes.
Nick?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, and then, if we can, certainly everyone can also take their own action. That would be great.
Yeah, the more the better.
Thank you for that update. I was behind on that one.
Well, it's hard to keep track of them all, and these show up in weird places. Like that was criminal justice. I think that took that on, and it affects natural resources. And I don't think it went to the.
It went through the Criminal Justice Subcommittee or something like that.
Well, no, they're standing committees, but sometimes bills have to go to more than one committee. Because of the crossover, but I doubt it would have gone to natural resources.
No.
So Conservation Commissioner members don't have to do a loyalty oath yet, right?
No.
Okay. They haven't come up with that bill yet?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Okay, well, this has been covered some ground, so thank you guys for a good meeting. I guess we have our next meeting on March 8th. Submission deadline February 25th. February 25th. We'll see hopefully some folks on Saturday. I hope you guys have a good rest of your week. I'll have a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Adjourn.
Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast channels 98 and 22. Channel 98 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 13, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Bi-Weekly Report, with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.